we all know and we all say that big tech manipulates the world for its own benefit. We're going to talk about that today on this episode of the Not So Critical Update.
Now you're really committed to the Not So Critical Update idea, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
But
so
it is the Not So Critical Update.
Right. It's not. It's small there. Not so critical update.
This is today's Not So Critical Update.
Let's stop doing this meta thing. Like and subscribe. Join our Discord. Now let's talk about how big tech is ruining the world.
Yeah.
And who's the major conspiracy theorist here, John? Would you say?
Oh, I don't know. Starts with N.
What do you reckon?
Ends with Ike.
Conspiracy theorist? There's no. All right. Okay, whatever. So
I was.
You're a self-admitted conspiracy theorist.
Sometimes there are actual conspiracies.
Yeah. And 99% of the time, there aren't.
I'm in.
It's like
that's why I only believe in the 1% that are real.
You're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you, John.
Exactly. So at any rate, two things come to mind. There's a series of stories about Apple that really stood out to me this week. But I was thinking about how when Russia invaded Ukraine, a bunch of the financial sanctions that other countries could impose were somewhat limited. We could stop buying fuel, but that would put Germany and France and other European countries in particular risk. So there was pushback on that. But what we saw was a lot of private corporations, McDonald's, Nike, Apple, pulling their business out of Russia in kind of private industry financial sanctions, right?
Quick question. Would you say quasi-government or quasi-government?
Quasi-government. Quasi-government.
Quasi. Okay.
Quasi,
all right.
quasi,
We got to split
quasi,
again.
Quasi-government.
Isn't it quasi?
Is it quasi? I
quasi.
feel very American. So what you anyway? That's apropos of absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Just a thought I had. Anyway, sorry, carry on about talking about.
But go ahead. Sanctions, Russia.
No stupid questions, Peter. Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate your feedback, input on the show.
It's quite striking, isn't it?
So there's a case where we would think like, yes, the corporations are doing the right thing. They're not doing the right thing. They're doing what's in their own best financial interest, right?
Just happens to be the right thing.
Right. So now we have a counterexample of Apple. So here's kind of the sequence of stories that I came across. The first story that I shared in our Discord server, like and subscribe, link in the description, is about how Apple limited AirDrop functionality in China weeks before the protest. So they assisted the Chinese government in crushing the protests by Chinese citizens against the zero COVID policy in advance of the protest. They knew the protest was coming. The Chinese government asked them to help shut it down. They did. Shortly after that, came out that Apple was missing some of their production deadlines because of problems with the COVID lockdowns interfering with manufacturing. So it was to their best interest to assist the Chinese government in getting these protests quashed so that they could keep their production numbers up. But they were falling behind. Because they were falling behind, now they're going to make some of their parts in India. India, incidentally, we've done a couple stories on recently, is rolling back its initiatives to look at privacy as a right. We did a story just last week, I think, on Telegram. Being forced to turn over information. So here's Apple working against the people of China in collaboration with the Chinese government, only to then move its manufacturing to India, where it will presumably do the exact same thing because it's in their financial best interest to do so. That's all. Where's the conspiracy in that? Is that...
There isn't really a conspiracy. I think you're right. The thing is, so we're all kind of used to thinking that, corporations will take advantage of us, they'll rip us off, they'll bait and switch, they'll use deceptive marketing practices, all that kind of shit. But then when it comes to sort of these big, huge global geopolitical moves, we're not used to thinking in those terms. And that's sort of like you said at the beginning, there were limits on the sanctions that the governments could put in place, but tech companies are outside they have their own laws. And when they get to the size of Google and Facebook and Apple and whoever, they do have that kind of power. They're true, like, international. I don't know what's the word that. No, not dynasties. There's a word that William Gibson used in his stuff.
Empires?
William Gibson's. Sorry.
Empires.
Something like that. Yeah. William Gibson's earlier works are all about a world where corporations rule and they have the ultimate power. They have the kind of the same. This is
the whole premise of cyberpunk.
Yeah, they have they can assassinate top tier scientists at other corporations, and they do renditions of staff from you can defect from what not defect. What's the quality? Yeah, defect from one corporation to another, and it's all basically like governments. And I don't think I think we're one step away from that. It seems like science fiction, but
one small step. I think we get lulled maybe into I don't want to say false sense of security, but sometimes we see, particularly in the US, a corporation will take a stand on the side of racial justice, and we'll think, yes, they're doing the right thing. They're on the right side. They're standing up for the people. But then we see, and maybe it's not a counterexample, but Google and Facebook lobbying Congress to have certain laws enacted. And even there, maybe we think, well, yeah, but we like those services. We want to keep doing. But they are looking out for no one but themselves. So
I think it's the role of. Sorry.
Just should they be able to do this? Should they be able to wield this power around the world?
I don't think there's a should or shouldn't in there. I think they can, and that's it. And the role of the government should be to incentivize good behavior, not incentivize.
But the problem there, Peter, is that we're not one. That's a cheap scapegoat, but I would say here's the big problem: we're not living in a Star Trek era world where we're globalized. No. So a good government will not get the business.
What's that mean?
Yeah, that's true. So India's proven this recently. They've put out all these pieces of regulation and they've done all this shit that is totally against privacy and personal privacy. The stuff with the VPNs, where they're requiring everybody to keep all records of data transfers, customer data. There's stuff with what's the thing?
The Telegram chat logs last week.
Yeah, the Telegram chat logs. Like, it's pretty bad, and it worked. India are moving, Apple are moving all their stuff to India. That's massive for the country. You're right, exactly that.
And I don't want to say the U.S. is not that the U.S. is a good government, but if the U.S. then now you can't sell your stuff in the U.S. The people are going to revolt against the U.S. government, not against Apple.
Yeah,
because the American people want their cheap iPhones.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Make it easier for Apple to operate in the US, but still have the same privacy protections. I think, I don't know, convince India not to do that, but give India something else would be maybe a
well. Then they'll skip India, right? Then they'll skip India and they'll go to, I don't know, wherever else that is a cheap, shitty.
There's a limited number of options though, because you need the workforce there as well. You need the low cost of labor, and you need the resources. And so India's a good option and China's a good option, and they would go somewhere else, but the cost would go up. So you know, there's trade-offs. You just kind of have to do a balancing act.
This is not a new problem. NPR's Planet Money podcast did a couple of series on the t-shirt industry, and basically does the exact same thing, chasing cheap labor around the globe, looking for places where they can find dirt cheap labor, spin up a factory fast, deplete all the resources, run everybody into the ground, and by the time cost of living starts to rise up, they'll pull up camp and go to the next place and leave them all completely dependent on this industry that now no longer exists.
Yeah.
So
basically,
fun for everyone.
Fuck corporations.
Yes.
I can see how the hippie movement happened.
I guess I just would want to say, be aware that this is what's happening. These companies are not looking out for you. They're not against you. They're looking out for themselves, and that's it. You have no vested interest in defending them. Tax the shit out of them. Make them work for you. Don't spend the rest of your life working for them. That's all.
Power to the people.